You had a good weekend, and I hope you're having a good day. I'm gonna wait about 20 seconds for everybody to get into the live stream, and I want to talk about the media's coverage of the G20 summit that happened this last week, with all of the nations meeting and talking and whatnot. So I'm gonna wait about 10 more seconds, and then I'll begin. Alright, it's getting filled up. I'll start now. I want to say the coverage from the mainstream media and from even social media in their featured news section just continues to prove my, I would say theory, but it's not really a theory. It's just facts, whether people realize it or not. But the fact that the media, the mainstream media, social media under the feature section, that they love war and poverty and confusion and negativity. They don't like prosperity, optimism, success, and whatnot. To anybody with a soul or a brain, it was a great G20 summit meeting from President Trump. He achieved a ceasefire in Syria, and humanitarians worldwide are very ecstatic because the number one concern of humanitarians is, things like starving people in Somalia and Yemen and the unnecessary war in Syria. And Donald Trump achieved ceasefire in Syria, and he also sent over $500 million in humanitarian aid to, I believe, 4 countries. And I would like to say, unlike Hillary Clinton's foundation, which is not a foundation, the Hillary Clinton Foundation is just a front group for her when she was Secretary of State to prance around the world and do business deals and, destroy Haiti, steal resources from Haiti, steal money from all over the world. This money that President Trump sent, I guarantee you it actually gets to the people and it actually feeds people, because as the United Nations and Hillary Clinton and all of these media sources, they pretend like, oh my goodness, the EU is perfect and anybody who wants to change anything we're doing is terrible. If they're so perfect, then how come poverty still exists? How come millions of people are starving? How come, so many people don't have clean water and access to just the basic human rights? It's because they've never cared. They have billions upon trillions of dollars. They could solve world hunger at any point. They just never had, because they're not good people and they've just been consistently lying. The media did not care the past 10 years under Obama. They didn't care that the refugee crisis got started. If anybody actually pays attention and doesn't just read the fake news media, all of the lies that they're saying, they would know there wasn't always a refugee crisis in Syria. People actually just lived there and prospered, and thrived in prosperity before the United States came and made it a sloppier situation by creating ISIS and funding ISIS and fueling ISIS and Al-Qaeda, terrorist groups that made it a lot harder to live in Syria. So the actual refugee crisis got created while the media had everybody under asleep. Watch Barack Obama play basketball. I was doing it too. I was like, man, Barack Obama's cool. He's funny. He's smart. He plays basketball. I thought Barack Obama was great. I had no idea what was going on, because the fake news, mainstream corporate war media, disguised as social justice warriors and environmentalists, they told everybody, oh, the world's perfect. Everything's great. Meanwhile, we're expanding into Somalia, into Yemen. We're in Iraq. We're in Afghanistan. We're in Syria. We're in Libya, we're destroying Libya, and I didn't even know that, Gaddafi in Libya was giving his people a lot of rights and houses and all this stuff. Nobody knew about it as the refugee crisis was getting created, because the media doesn't care. They don't care about you. They're not trying to stop Trump because they think Trump is this big bad bully. They're trying to stop Trump because, one, it's not who they want in there. They want a puppet they can control. Barack Obama is the perfect puppet because he's so cool, so funny, so witty, so smart, so Barack Obama can entertain the masses and herd everybody in like sheep. Don't pay attention to me. Meanwhile, they created the refugee crisis. So number one, it's obvious that the media loves poverty, they love refugees, they love war, because they let the refugee crisis happen and they never quit. Did you ever see the New York Times or the Washington Post or MSNBC or CNN? Did you ever hear them questioning our moves in Syria? The fact that ISIS got virtually created out of nothing? No, they just used ISIS to fearmonger on CNN. It's ISIS, ISIS, ISIS. Everybody's getting scared, scared, scared. Meanwhile, they never provide solutions. They never provide solutions. because they don't care about solutions. If they wanted to solve things, they actually could. But luckily, we have a president in office that doesn't care. He's trying to solve things against massive backlash. So once again, two very important things. If anybody, and I don't care whether you like him or not, that's not my priority, that's not my preference, that's not my business. But anybody that knows the reality of how the universe works, how the world works, and how, positive manifestation and getting things done works, when good things happen, regardless of if you like President Trump or not, like over $500 million of humanitarian aid to people who are starving, thanks to policies of past presidents, and ending, part of the war in Syria, creating a ceasefire, so now Syrian children and men and women and babies don't have to, get blown up by unnecessary bombs from the United States. Yes, the United States has been killing civilians. You could Google it right now. Under President Barack Obama, Google this. Drone strikes, which means an unmanned, weaponized, machine of some sort. His drone strikes killed 90% civilians. 90% of his drone strikes killed innocent civilians. 90%. And this is a machine drone. It has radar. It has GPS. How do you kill 90% civilians? To me, it doesn't seem like it was a mistake. Did you ever see the media talk about it? Oh my God, Barack Obama's killing 90% civilians and kids in hospitals and schools. No, because they don't care about prosperity. So anyway, to get back to what I was saying, anybody knows that if you want good things to happen, the way to do it is you're supposed to, if you have a positive mindset and you want to manifest positivity, not negativity, when good things happen, you're supposed to egg those on and reward those. So even if you don't like Trump, you say, bad Trump. But you have to say, good Trump, good boy, good job. Not that he's a dog of some sort, but, say, oh, wow, you aided people over almost $1 billion in humanitarian aid. That's a good job. Oh, you're ending the war in Syria because instead of fighting with Russia and using the media to weaponize human beings to try to kill everybody and fight everybody, oh, you're trying to create a ceasefire in Syria so there's no more refugees, so we don't have to bring in all these people to other countries, because if you don't mess up their homes, they don't need to leave in the first place. Oh, you didn't know that? Everybody acts like refugee. Why does nobody crying about the refugee crisis ever even consider that there would be no refugees if people stopped doing so many dumb things all over the world? Everyone could stay where they are. There doesn't need to be refugees. But when the United States destroys Libya and Libya and Syria, then there needs to be refugees, but nobody cared about that. But anyway, you don't see the media. The media doesn't say, oh my God, good job for ending the war in Syria, or starting to end the war in Syria, or attempting to end the war in Syria. They never egg on the good things he does because they're negativity, war, fake news, propaganda media. A positive person says, oh my goodness, yes, let's end the war. Let's feed those people. That's what pushed Trump to do that, but they're not doing that. They're just trying to get rid of Trump at all costs because he's an actual human being who cares about things. People say to me, oh my goodness, how dare you say that President Trump possibly could want to help people? Well, maybe, did you ever consider that he does want to help people and you've just been programmed and brainwashed to believe that everything he does is bad? Is he a perfect human being? No, of course not. And to me, he loves women and buildings. He doesn't love war, where these other past politicians, they're just war corporate bank puppets, and that's all they care about. And maybe that's the reason that they hate Russia so much, because the story they don't tell you about Russia is we're breaking treaties with the UN, the United Nations, and the European Union. We keep breaking treaty after treaty after treaty, keep expanding into Europe, expanding in the Middle East, and then we point the finger and wonder why people are mad. A good thing that Vladimir Putin did was he banned Open Society Foundation, or whatever the name of George Soros's fake foundation is. They banned them from Europe. There's reports, I haven't confirmed these, I know for a fact that Russia banned George Soros's Open Society Foundation from Russia. And there's reports, I don't know for sure, but you could look into yourself, that they banned the Rothschild banks, the world banks that actually control the world. So maybe that's the reason they're so mad at Russia, because anytime somebody strays away from the central banks or kicks George Soros out of their country, all of a sudden ISIS shows up, or there's a war, or there's a regime change situation, and then they disguise it as a humanitarian effort. Like, they're like, oh, well, Barack Obama's a good person, so we're going to kill Gaddafi, because like they don't even have reasons. If you actually read some of these articles by New York Times and Washington Post, this is what made me even make these reports in the first place, because I have other things I could be doing. I just am a real social justice warrior, and I'm a real humanitarian, and I'm a real activist, not a fake activist paid by George Soros. I'm a real one. That's why I even make these videos in the first place. But I looked at all these articles, and it's not even that New York Times and Washington Post. It would be bad enough if they were just negative and just negatively manifesting everything. They didn't care about war. That would be bad enough. But it's not just that they're opinionated in a negative fashion. It's that they're just completely lying. I posted a picture earlier today of the New York Times. Their whole article is making fun of a Trump tweet, and then their own story debunked themselves as being a liar. They misinterpreted it because they're too dumb and dishonest to know the truth, and then they point the finger at everyone else. They act like everything he says, they don't know what he's talking about. Meanwhile, they're just lying about everything. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's not just an opinionated story. There's been 10, 20 plus completely fabricated stories that have no basis, no reality, no real sources. They just make up anonymous sources and say U.S. officials anonymously possibly think. Like, if you actually read the article instead of just letting them brainwash everybody, because they blast it out to everybody and then everyone believes it, and then it becomes a sort of self-manifestation thing where everybody talks about it because they believe it to be true. That's the definition of propaganda. It doesn't make it true. It's never been true. And to me, this summit proves that they don't care about peace and prosperity. And what I love about this summit is a lot of humanitarians, a lot of activists, a lot of progressives, they're finally starting to see, wait a second, Donald Trump is not the problem. Donald Trump didn't create racism. Donald Trump didn't create the refugee crisis. Donald Trump didn't create, society and how it works. Donald Trump didn't create how the United States has been operating for the past 60 years. The funny thing to me about that is a lot of social justice warriors and activists and racial activists and women activists, they know what the United States has been doing. They have been mad at the United States for 100 plus years, since the beginning of time. Every activist is like, I hate America, they're terrible, they've done terrible things to Native Americans, they've done terrible things to people of color, they've done terrible things here and this. And in a lot of ways, they're absolutely right. The past was a crazy time. The United States has done a lot of unspeakable acts, and it is time for justice and freedom for everybody. So while I agree with activists, the weird thing to me is a majority of these activists who have been mad at the United States for 100 plus years for all of the unspeakable things they've done, these activists are placing all the blame on Donald Trump now, the one president who's actually going against the ruling order and the ruling class that has been controlling society in America for the past 300 years. Donald Trump's opposing them. He's, instead of escalating the war, he's de-escalating the war. Instead of stealing everybody's resources and pretending to help Haiti and just stealing everything from them, he's actually sending humanitarian aid to them. He has enough money. He's not going to go around the world stealing money like Hillary Clinton and her family. That's not what he does, whether the news lies about it or not. And if I stand corrected, if we find out years later that happened, I just highly doubt it. Anyway, they don't care about that. And I want to ask activists to take a really good hard look at this situation, because if you really think America is so terrible for the past 300 years, and in a lot of ways I absolutely agree with you, and in some ways I don't, I would say, why are you mad at the one person in the past 50 years that's going against that ruling class that created did all these terrible things with race and religion and sexual orientation and whatnot? He's going against them. So if you're so mad at America's past, why don't you try to look outside the fake news media and the 5 to 6 corporations that control the train of thought for 50 plus years and were the ones hiding all of these things, creating the refugee crisis, starting the wars? Maybe take a look at the guy outside of that and just consider, you don't have to believe it, consider, maybe he could make things better, since instead of lying to everybody, he's actually telling the truth. Sometimes it's too blunt, sometimes he's wrong, but for the most part, it's better than a fake friend who lies to you, who's like, everything's perfect, la la la. Meanwhile, all these wars are getting started, people are starving, people are dying, drone strikes are killing 90% civilians. I mean, this is not my opinion, this is reality. This is not, anomaly things. No, it's a fact, it's a study, it's proven 90% of Barack Obama's drone strikes killed civilians. And if you're a quote-unquote liberal or a Democrat or whatever you think you are, and you don't care about drone strikes killing kids and hospitals and buildings, maybe you're worse than you thought you were. Pointing the finger is easy. Pointing the finger at people who support this person, that person, is easy pointing the finger. It's hard self-reflecting and realize, hey, you know what, I might be wrong. And I want to say, I think it was a great G20 summit. I think that the media, they focus on, oh, look at the handshake. Oh, he didn't shake Trump's hand. Is this TMZ or is this CNN? Because I can't tell the difference. TMZ, in my opinion, probably a lot more honest than CNN, New York Times, and Washington Post, because at least TMZ, among all their gossip, they get right to the source sometimes, pay people off, and get the real scoop. They knew Michael Jackson was dead before anybody else did. So, I mean, when I read CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, it looks like TMZ. It looks like a gossip website. Oh, they didn't shake his hand. Oh, he's doing a terrible job. Oh, he's doing this and doing that. Do you even care that the war in Syria is about to end, or no? They don't care because they're not humanitarian media. The New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, they're the worst of the worst. They're war bank puppets, propagandists, disguised as good people, disguised as Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid and all these, oh, I care about people, but I'm going to tell you to keep voting for the Democratic Party, and murderers and rapists and all sorts of people who destroy humanity. George Soros, who acts like a humanitarian, but really he's a economic hitman who just goes to other countries, invests his money, de-invests his money, destroys the whole economy, leaves the whole country in shambles, and then in America here, we think he's, a saint. Oh, well, he likes Hillary Clinton, so he must be a real humanitarian. No, he's not. He's an economic hitman who will do anything for money. And that's a lot of the problem in the United States as well, and it has nothing to do with President Trump. It's not going to stop when he gets out of office. It's probably not going to stop when he gets into office. The fact that people do anything for money. And this is a system that has been around for 30 plus years and just manifesting itself, and it has nothing to do with President Trump. The fact that a lot of people in the health industry, they don't actually care about people's health. They'll do anything for money. They'll prescribe pills. They'll take out people's stuff just to get money. In the food industry, they don't care that it's made of high fructose corn syrup. They don't care that it's made of, chemicals that aren't even found naturally in, Mother Nature. There's no fresh foods. They don't care that it's pumped with GMOs that take all of the health qualities out of it. They don't care in the food industry because they're just trying to make money. And that goes to the pharmacy industry and the insurance industry and basically every industry ever. And that's why it's a powerful thing. If you have a soul and you have a conscience and you're a good person, the world will naturally help you. You don't need to just chase money and destroy people's lives. That's what a lot of Americans do. Has nothing to do with Donald Trump. It's been happening. And now these fake news media, they're convincing everybody, hate Donald Trump and all your problems will go away. No, they won't, because these media sources that hate on Donald Trump, they created these problems. They've hid these problems. They've never once made an effort to solve these problems. They don't care about the problems. They don't care about poverty. They don't care about millions of people who are bankrupt from healthcare. Their goal is to just get you to hate everything Donald Trump does. And now that Donald Trump's actually finally putting his money where his mouth is and de-escalating the war in Syria and helping people with humanitarian money, now their news is now going against that. So like they have the entire time, and millions of people have known this, they want a war in Syria. They want a war with Russia. It's not because Russia is necessarily that terrible. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but to truly thrive in humanity in the future, we're going to have to get along with Russia because we can't start wars. We can't fight forever. It's at the point we have technology and weapons that if we start another big war, it's not going to end like we want it to end. Albert Einstein said it great. He said World War I was fought with, guns. And don't quote me on this because I don't know the exact thing, but Albert Einstein said World War I was fought with guns. World War II was fought with tanks. I don't know what World War III will be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. And what Albert Einstein, of course, meant was, I don't know what's going to happen in World War III, but it's going to destroy everything, so don't do it. And you have a media that thinks it's a game. They think every time North Korea shoots a missile, it's like, it's funny to them. Or, it's Trump's fault. It's not Trump's fault. North Korea's been wild for the past 20 years. They've been doing this, but now they have a spotlight on it. Like, these people want war. You can't make this stuff up. When it comes to Russia, it's like, oh no, let's make fun of Trump's handshake, even though he's de-escalating the war in Syria that we virtually created, that we started. We're the reason for the refugee crisis, but let's make fun of Trump for ending the war. It's disgusting. I would think that humanitarians, true liberals, true Democrats, true social justice warriors, true activists of all kinds would stop playing along with the media. Just because you don't like Donald Trump and you're sharing all these articles doesn't make you a good person. It actually makes you a terrible person because you're ignoring real life, real reality for a lot of people that have been getting terribly treated, and the media covers it up. The media is like one big giant PR team for the most criminal people in the world. They're like one giant war PR team. They don't care about anything, and I implore you to look for yourself. I don't want you to just blindly believe what I'm saying, because any true news analyst or reporter doesn't tell you, hey, believe what I say. That's what CNN says. That's how you know they're propaganda. They're not real news. They say, oh, no, you got to listen to us. Don't read it. Don't read WikiLeaks. Don't read that. Don't read this. Don't listen to them. They're all right. They're neo-Nazi. They're nationalists. They're white nationalists, blah, blah, blah. They have a name for everybody because they don't want you to think for yourself. They want you to listen to them. When I report, I say, research for yourself. Don't believe me at all if you don't want. Believe me 100%. I don't care. Do this research on your own. Watch the news cycle every day. Read what the New York Times is saying. Read what the Washington Post. I had a friend who plays basketball. He told me, man, Anomaly, once you told me about CNN, like now that I actually watch it and I turn it on, within 30 seconds, I just see 5 lies and I could tell they're lying. Yes, all it takes is just that spark, and then you look for yourself. I don't want you to believe me. Look for yourself. Look at Twitter news. Twitter news is terrible. Look at, look at the featured news section on a lot of social media and a lot of what's like status quo and popular. It's bananas. It's just complete fake news. It's not even an opinion. It's just fake. Like, it's a fact. I told people for months, I have videos since October of 2016, not to toot my own horn, but I told everybody the Russian news was completely fabricated. It was just a way to try to start a war in Syria and start a war with Russia. That's all the Russian news was. I told people for months. I got yelled at. I lost friends. I had all this stuff happen to me. And look what happened. Excuse me. Look what happened over the past 2 weeks. Oh, that's 17 intelligence agencies. That's the talking point they had. Well, who do you think you are? There's 17 intelligence agencies. There's 17 intelligence agencies who said this. That whole story was a lie. The New York Times retracted that whole story. But the thing is, they blasted it out to the world. They had PolitiFact, MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, Huffington Post, pretty much anybody, Vox, anybody who acts like they're for racial and religious, freedom, but they're really just professional liars. They reported that all year. So tens of millions of people heard about the 17 intelligence agencies. They retract the story, but the thing is, they don't even make an article about retracting the story. They do it on the back end. They're like, oh, we retracted it, but none of the news sources that have lied about it all year, they didn't blast it out. People said, Anomaly, I don't see any of the major news sources even covering that. I know. That's what should surprise you. The fact that none of them covered that, but it's true. It's not a conspiracy. It's not a made up. It's not my opinion. It's a fact on the New York Times website that they retracted the 17 intelligence agencies story, but they blast out the lie, and when they actually correct themselves, they don't tell anybody. That's propaganda. That's what they do. It's not an opinion. It's a fact. And it's getting annoying because now we have the war possibly being de-escalated, and it's easy. It's easy to do these things. I'm not saying completely easy, but you know what's hard? What's hard is letting a terrorist group that didn't even exist 15 years ago. ISIS didn't exist. It was just Al-Qaeda. There was no such thing as ISIS under George Bush. It's hard for a company that has a country, same thing, we're basically a giant company, but a country that has the biggest military budget in the world, the biggest air force, has bases all over the world. How do you let a terror group that doesn't even exist bloom out of nothing? You do it by not actually fighting them and funding them. And that's what people have been doing for the past 15 years. They haven't been fighting terrorism, they've been funding terrorism. And I just ask people to consider the things I'm saying and not even believe them, but do your own research and really look at what they're saying. When all these big news sources that get shared because it's so trendy to hate Trump, oh yeah, let's share all these fake news articles and let's get in bed with the real oppressors. You know, let's join the forces of the people who started the refugee crisis and blame the people trying to protect us and help the refugee crisis and prevent a future refugee crisis. Let's blame them and join the hands of the oppressors. Read those articles because they never make any sense. They made fun of Trump. He said, man, China's trade increased around 40%. And they were like, where did he possibly get that number? It's like these people are professional liars and professional war starters and professional terrorist funders. That's what the mainstream media is. They're not heroes. They're not honest people. And the G12 summit should prove it, because Trump did two very important things once again. He sent a lot of humanitarian aid to 4 countries that desperately need it. I believe 2 of them were Somalia and Yemen, which are 2 countries that there's a lot of poverty, a lot of just starving people. It's not even about the war. There's just people who don't have access to food. It's very terrible stuff. They need to get fed. But unlike in Haiti, when Hillary Clinton and her cronies went to Haiti, they stole all the resources. Now they own a lot of the resources in Haiti. They pretended like they were helping, and they actually made situations worse. I guarantee you that President Trump doesn't do that because he's not a satanic, terrible person like some of these other people. And, of course, a ceasefire in Syria. Syria is not a hellhole. Syria is not a home of terrible people. Syria is a beautiful place, and it's the home to a lot of beautiful women, wonderful children, amazing men. It's a great place, and it doesn't deserve to be bombed recklessly by the United States, the UN, EU, and other countries. It deserves prosperity, and it deserves a ceasefire, which President Trump and Vladimir Putin brought. And that should make you think, if Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin talked one time in person and achieved a ceasefire in Syria, maybe, just maybe, the media that's been lying about Putin, that's been lying about Trump, that's been lying about Russia, maybe that media doesn't want peace. Because if President Trump can talk to Russia one time and achieve peace, think about how much Russian propaganda was pushed at us all year. They made us believe that Russia is destroying our country, Russia's influencing our election and doing this and doing that and doing that. And they tell Trump, you better ask him about the Russian meddling. And Trump tweets, hey, I asked him about the Russian meddling. And then the news sources say, oh, why did he ask him about the Russian meddling? It's like, he can't do anything. They're so dishonest. I wish he would say that he hates water and he's not going to drink water, because then millions of people would just drop dead. They would think water's terrible because they're just opposing anything Trump does. But this should be a wake-up call to people. If he almost damn near ended or paused the war in Syria in one meeting, after they spent millions upon billions of advertising dollars to convince people that getting along with Russia is bad, that we shouldn't talk to Russia, we shouldn't get along with them, we should just war. That's what this news is doing, and they disguise it as social justice. They call everybody racist and sexist and xenophobic, and they just brainwash people into being like complete zombies and sheep. And I know too many people that are like that, where it's like, okay, hate Trump. I hate Trump. Okay, start war with Russia. Yeah, start war with Russia because I hate Trump, so let's start war with... No, that's not normal. Just because you hate Trump doesn't mean starting World War III with Russia over stuff that's the United States' fault. It's not all Russia's fault. It's the United States breaking treaties. We act like Russia's crazy for being in Ukraine. Look at the United States. We're all over the place. If you want to play the game of, oh, well, if they tried to hack us, they need to be held accountable. If you want to play that game, do you know how many... we would not be a country anymore. We would get destroyed because we've hacked 50-plus countries. We've interfered in 10, 20-plus elections. We're hacking everybody. We're interfering in everyone's elections. So if you really want to hold everyone accountable, we wouldn't even exist anymore. We'd be destroyed by every country, according to that logic. So maybe get a grip of reality before you start believing fake news media, once again, lying about everything, lying about the G20 summit, lying about Russia, lying about the war. They just want war. And I think a lot of people are coming around. CNN is collapsing because not only do they lie and make up stuff, but now they're coming after Reddit users. It's like they're so desperate and pathetic, they'll do anything. They're collapsing, just like President Trump says, the failing New York Times, because they are failing. If they're not, they should be. 2 years ago, everybody thought, oh, New York Times, that's a intellectual, highbrow, news source. But now millions of people realize, you know what, New York Times is a propaganda post that's funded heavily by Carlos Slim, who was involved in Hillary Clinton's campaign. It's like George Carlin said, it's one big group, or it's one big whatever he said, and you're not in it. That's what it all is. And the New York Times is failing in propaganda. The Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos of Amazon, who's the second richest person in the world, who has a $600 million contract with the CIA. So anytime the Washington Post lies, it's not really a surprise where that's coming from. I mean, just like President Trump says, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, it's not good news. It never was. Just because you hate Trump, it doesn't make them credible news and honest news, because anybody with a brain, or any activist, or any social justice warrior who now pretends like they don't know reality, they've been complaining about this same stuff for 10 plus years. And right before I go, once again, humanitarian aid being sent to 4 countries where people desperately need it, and a ceasefire in Syria, a well-deserved ceasefire, because we should not be drone striking civilians, drone striking families, drone striking hospitals, and drone striking buildings, which, yes, was happening over the past 10 years. I'm sorry that you're just tuning in now. We shouldn't be doing that. We should have a ceasefire. We should be fighting real terrorists who want to chop people's heads off and kill people for no reason, of all kinds. Peaceful Christians being killed, peaceful Muslims being killed. That's who we should be fighting, those terrorists. We shouldn't be drone striking civilians. So it's nice to see a little bit of a strategy change there, and a ceasefire in Russia. And once again, think about how much negative Russia press was pushed out by mainstream media this year. One meeting with Putin and a ceasefire in Syria. The possibilities are endless. I'm not afraid to say it now, because I know everybody will know in a year, and then we could look back on this video and be like, wow, Anomaly told us the truth when it wasn't popular. But President Trump is capable of the impossible. And this is actually a quote from the Egyptian president. He said, President Trump is capable of the impossible, because instead of a bank puppet being controlled by the banks, instead of a corporate puppet being controlled by the puppet, do this, George Bush, do this, Barack Obama, do what we say, or you're not going to be there. You have a bold, sometimes arrogant billionaire who doesn't owe anybody any favors. He likes women, he likes buildings, he likes luxury. He doesn't like war. It is what it is. He's capable of doing the impossible in the Middle East because he actually cares. Other presidents and other politicians, they act like they care. They act really nice. They act really smart and funny, but they're really just puppets for war, the military-industrial complex, and the banks. So we finally have a president who actually cares. And I'm not afraid to say it, because I know in a year everybody will realize, once the fake news media dies down and we're like, oh, look, the war stopped and people aren't starving anymore. It's very easy to do. It's just for the beginning of time, or at least for the past 20, 30 plus years, they don't care. So President Trump is capable of doing the impossible. He's capable of stopping the war in Syria. He's capable of ending terrorism. He's capable of finagling deals to make it so Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Turkey and all these other, and Iran and the United States, most importantly us too, put us in there, we stop being terrorists ourselves. We stop funding terrorists and acting like terrorists, because a terrorist blows up buildings and kills civilians. So if any of the countries above, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Iran, or the United States, or the UN, or the EU, if any of them are killing civilians, then they're terrorists too. Just because they're not dark-skinned and they're not the religion that you want them to be, it doesn't mean they're not terrorists. Anybody could be a terrorist. So President Trump is capable of the impossible. And I'm excited to see it, to be honest. And I'm excited that people are coming around to be like, wait a second, he's ending the war in Syria? I thought he would. No. Don't. Just keep tuned to the fake news that's being blasted everywhere. Look at the headline, and then look at the body of the subject. Look at the sources. Look at what they're saying. And you can decipher this stuff for yourself. Any decent person, before I go, any decent person would be optimistic, positive. They would have positive reinforcement. Hey, good job for doing that. Thank you for sending food there. Oh, thank you for stopping the war. That's what a good person does, because that's how you achieve prosperity. You don't fight all the bad stuff all the time. You create the new. You create the good. You fuel the good. Good, 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 good. That's not what the news sources do. Here's the good, 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 good. The mainstream media is like bad, 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 because they don't want good things coming. They don't want prosperity. They just want people to be in a state of fear and paranoia, just like the producer from CNN admitted under a hidden camera. He said, we're just doing it for ratings. That's how heartless and soulless these people are. They lied all year about Russia. They damn near started World War III. Thankfully, Trump was able to sidestep it. They started World War III for ratings. You can't make this stuff up. It's not an opinion anymore. It's not a theory like it was of mine in October. It's fact now. But on to the next fake story. Let's convince everybody. Let's keep everyone looking this way so they don't realize we just retracted the biggest lie of 2017. That's the New York Times. That's the Washington Post. I'm Anomaly. Like my page, subscribe to YouTube, whatever, it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna post a donor box link below if you want to support my journalism. I appreciate it greatly. I won't even say competing, because I'm not competing. I have love for everyone, no enemies, but we're talking about multi-million dollars and in some case billion-dollar news corporations that don't even have the reach that we have here with zero advertising dollars. I've spent $0 in advertising over the past year, so it's pretty incredible what good energy can do. A lot of good people from all over sharing all the videos, so thank you for the likes, the shares, the comments, and especially to people who are donating, who are making this all possible. As you see, I don't even have anything on the walls. I don't need that much. All I need is a cell phone, my computer. I edit my own videos. I'm a one-man team right now, but I wouldn't even say one man. I would say million-man team, because everybody's a part of it. Every contribution, whether it's a like, a share, a comment, sending somebody my video, it helps greatly, and we're doing numbers. I just checked 45 million plus views this year with no advertising budget. That's incredible. We're breaking records. We're breaking absolutely social media records. I think we're breaking worldwide records, historic records, and we're doing it together. So thank you for the donations. It means a lot. It helps me just exist. That's all I need to do. And we're gonna keep it moving. I'll have new videos next week. I'll make a good complete one. I'll do some live streams. Let me know what you want me to talk about. Leave some comments, and I'll be back. Thank you guys. Have a good day.